यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरा वनचारी यमुनातीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रीमद इसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की आनंद कोटि वैष्णव की नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोविंद श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की समवेत भक्तवृंद की all glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Shri Prabhupada, Namo Vishnupada Krishna Prashtavadala Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swamitananda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Parimanam cha kalasya kalpa lakshana vigraham yatha purustad vyakhyasya padmam kalpam atho shrinu parimanam cha kalasya kalpalakshana vigraham yatha purustad vyakhyase padmam kalpatoshinu parimanam cha kalasya kalpalakshana vigraham yatha purustad vyakhyase padmam kalpamatoshinu parimanam cha kalasya kalpalakshana vigraham yatha purustad vyakhyase padmam kalpatoshinu parimanam cha kalasya kalpalakshana vigraham padmam kalpamatoshinu parimanam cha kalasya kalpalakshana vigraham yatha purustad vyakhyase padmam kalpamatoshinu parimanam cha kalasya kalpalakshana vigraham yatha purustad vyakhyase Mataji parimanam cha kalasya vyakyase padam kalpamatoshnu parimanam measurement cha also kalasya of time kalpa a day of Brahma lakshana symptoms vigraham form yatha as much as purustat hereafter vyakhyasya shall be explained padmam by the name Padma kalpam the duration of a day atho thus shrinu just here. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O King, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features with the specific symptom of each. But for the present, let me explain unto you the Padma Kalpa. Purport. The present duration of a kalpa of Brahma is called Varaha Kalpa or Sweta Varaha Kalpa because the incarnation of the Lord as Varaha took place during the creation of Brahma, who was born on the lotus coming out of the abdomen of Vishnu. Therefore, this Varaha Kalpa is also called Padma Kalpa, and this is testified by Acharyas like Jiva Goswami as well as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the pursuance of the first commentator Swami Sridhar. So there is no contradiction between the Varaha and the Padma Kalpa of Brahma. I'm going to go to the next two verses also. Shaunaka Uvacha Yataho na bhavan sutta Kshata Bhagavatottamaha Chachara Tirthani Bhuvas Tyaktva Bandhun Sudhush Tyajan. Translation. Shaunaka Rishi, after hearing about the creation, inquired from Sutta Goswami about Vidura. For Sutta Goswami had previously informed him how Vidura left home, leaving aside all his relatives who were very difficult to leave. Purport. The rishis headed by Shaunaka were more anxious to know about Vidura, who met Maitreya Rishi while traveling to the pilgrimage sites of the world. Text 49 to 50. Shattu kaushar swetasya samvado dhyatma sanshitah yadvasa bhagavangs tasmai prashtastva tattvam uvachah bruhinas tad idam saumya vidurasya vicheshtitam bandhu tyaga nimittam cha yathaiva gatvan punah. Translation. Shaunaka Rishi said, let us know, please, what topics were discussed between Vidura and Maitreya, who talked on transcendental subjects, and what was inquired by Vidura and replied by Maitreya. Also, please let us know the reason for Vidura giving up the connection of his family members, and why he again came home. Please also let us know the activities of Vidura while he was in the place of pilgrimage. Purport. Sri Sutta Goswami was narrating the topics of the creation and destruction of the material world, but it appears that the rishis headed by Shaunaka were more inclined to hear of transcendental subjects which are on a higher level than physical. There are two classes of men, namely those who are addicted to gross body and the material world, and others on the higher level, who are interested more in the transcendental knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam gives facility to everyone, both to the materialist and to the transcendentalist. By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of the Lord's glorious activities, both in the material world and in the transcendental world, men can derive equal benefit. The materialists are more interested in the physical laws and how they are acting, and they see wonders in those physical glamour. Sometimes, due to physical glamour, they forget the glories of the Lord. They should know definitely that physical activities and their wonders are all initiated by the Lord. The rose in the garden gradually takes its shape and color to become beautiful and sweet, not by blind physical law, although it appears like that. Behind the physical law is the direction of the complete consciousness of the Supreme Lord, otherwise things cannot take shape. So systematically, the artist draws a picture of a rose very nicely with all attention and artistic sense, and yet it does not become as perfect as the real rose. If that is the real fact, how can we say that the real rose has taken its shape without intelligence behind the beauty? This sort of conclusion is due to poor fund of knowledge. One must know from the above description of creation and annihilation that the Supreme Consciousness, being omnipresent, can take care of everything with perfect attention. That is the fact of the omnipresence of the Supreme Lord. Persons still more foolish than the gross materialist, however, claim to be transcendentalist and claim to have such supreme, all-pervading consciousness, but offer no proof. Such foolish persons cannot know what is going on behind the next wall, yet they are falsely proud of possessing the cosmic, all-pervading consciousness of the Supreme Person. For them all, hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is great help. It will open their eyes to see that simply by claiming supreme consciousness, one does not become supremely conscious. One has to prove in the physical world that he has such supreme consciousness. The rishis of Naimisharanya, however, were above such gross materialists and the false transcendentalists, and thus they are always anxious to know the real truth in transcendental matters as discussed by authorities. ओमज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं भूतले स्वयं रूपकथामि ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्वेतपत्रकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सर्वदूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादं सगणललिता शिवशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमस्ते तप्त काञ्चन गौरङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिभ्यो वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिविकाससमये नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिते नमने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So this here, we're right at the end of the second canto now. We'll finish off tomorrow. It's the last text, tomorrow 51. It's a slightly different subject matter, so I didn't want to continue on with that and let the devotee that's giving tomorrow finish that off. And so, going over a few verses and beginning with the kalpas of how this is the science of time is so well delineated, is so well given in the Shastras, in the Vedic literatures. It is not just the God, God created the universe in 7 days. He said, let there be light, and that was it. But so much detail is given, what time we're in, what the nature of time is, the cycles of time. There's the prediction, or not even you can't say prediction. There's a time that is given for the creation and annihilation. Everything is given in proper understanding. There's the yugas that is given, and you can see by the symptoms how those yugas are taking place. The Srimad Bhagavatam describes the Kali Yuga that is at present, and how those symptoms match up pretty much word to word, and more to come. So the Srimad Bhagavatam presents us a complete science of not just spiritual life, but just material interactions that happen in this world, and just how the material world functions also. And that is a part of the philosophy, that is a part of a complete philosophy. And Prabhupada would often say like that. I just saw a conversation with Srila Prabhupada where he was, here we go, the Bible. So in the Bible there are so many Brahmananda. In the Bible there may be so many things that were about the world that were mistakes. And then by their scientific knowledge, they have found real fact. Like they say earth was flat. Bible may be wrong, but we are taking general. So if you're a scientist, you can say the right thing, but why should you deny God? Brahmananda. Well, if the book of God has made mistake, then we don't have any faith. Prabhupada. Book of God, they throw it, kick it out. But I say that you're a scientist, how can you deny God? That is our proposal. The so-called book of God you throw away, but you're a scientist, how can you deny the existence of God? You are misleading. Bible misleading, that's all right. Why are you misleading? That is our point. So, Chaivana Prabhu, I'm guessing here, for so many centuries they took the Bible to be the authority. All right, throw it away, you're a scientist. They won't. So then Prabhupada goes on, you are a scientist, how can you deny God? Then what kind of scientist you are? The Bible has done wrong, throw it away. I have no objection. But you are a scientist, how can you deny God? And that is our point. Come to that logic. That how we can deny God? You are speaking that from chemical combination life is formed. So Prabhupada goes on, I'll continue with that in a bit. But main point being here that the Bible's understanding of how the world was created and what the world is like has been completely rejected by the scientists, and because it doesn't really have such a deep basis of it, immediately actually when they started to, is it Aristotle that started to see into the universe? No, Aristotle is not, it's not Aristotle for sure. It's someone else, I forget who it was. So, not Socrates, not philosopher. We're talking about a scientist who, in order to, astronomer, well, yeah, he's an astronomer, I guess you could say. In order to determine that the earth wasn't flat. Huh? No, it's not him. I forget his name. I can do searching, but it will take a little time. But basically what he did was, in order to determine that the earth was round or whatever, he looked into outer space with his telescope and saw that every other planet on the, universe or within the whatever universal situation we have was round. So he naturally concluded that, well, even the earth is round. Sure, that's not a perfect knowledge, but it's somewhat logical compared to just saying, okay, it is flat or whatever that they may say. So Prabhupada, the scientists, because of the shallow depth of philosophy and understanding within the tradition of Christianity, as soon as science started to kind of develop, well, it was developed with the idea that it would ultimately be for understanding God's nature. Theists developed science and they put forward this scientific idea. But as soon as they started to look into facts, look into how things work in the world, how they are, it didn't match up with what the Bible's understanding of how the world was. So obviously when you have perception, sense perception, and you see things as they are, you have this cup and you say, oh, it fell on the ground, oh, it didn't fall. It's like, well, what are you talking about? The Bible said it didn't fall, but then you see it fall. Or the Bible says things in a certain way, but it's completely misleading, as Prabhupada is saying. I reject it. I have no objection. You can throw it away. What is that? There's other places where Prabhupada said many things like that, like Christianity is like he was in one place. Some places he would encourage them, but then in some places it's not much use. They don't know much. There was a little quote that I read at one point. I think you showed me that. You sent me that. What was that Prabhupada said about? Pure speculation. That's all. Pure speculation. That's all it is. So here we see the very intricate way time is functioning, described. The kalpas and Brahma's, how, within Brahma's day, there's those different manvantaras, and how right now we're specifically through 50 years of Brahma's life, and we're specifically in the manvantara of Vaivasvata Manu, who's the 7th Manu. So it's kind of inconceivable how somebody could put so much detail into what time, what circumstance, what place we're in right now. And actually, I found out anytime they do a yagya, they chant all of these prayers to say, okay, in this place, in this yuga, in this planet, on this part of the planet, we are performing this yagya for Vishnu. And then so, they'll say like that. It's very intricate in its descriptions. So this creation and annihilation is going on, and the Vedas present a very formed understanding of what the material world is and how it comes about. And as Parameshwar Prabhu was describing a few days ago, and as some of our great teachers within the line of Srila Prabhupada, or the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, have done great research work and presented how whatever number they've come up with after spending millions of dollars on experiments and theories and such, that it has matched up, is very close to what the Vedas describe also. So the authority of the Vedas is there, and not everything can be understood by sense perception, but we accept the Veda as truth, as axiom? Axiomatic. It is accepted as a fact. And so here, Srila Prabhupada, here we see that he starts to say here that now I shall explain unto you the Padma Kalpa. Immediately it seems that Saunaka Rishi said, well, that's very nice, but, we would like to hear about Vidura first, because later we'll see that actually, that continues, and Shukadeva Goswami does describe how time is formed from the movements of the atom. That was wild. When I read that, I was like, okay, this is something to hear. And started to describe the increments of time, the micro, it's like micro seconds and then how they form seconds. And I was like a little bit shocked. I was like, wow, this is amazing that this book is 5,000 years old and is speaking about the movements of an atom. And at that point, I was also studying physics, and we were, in quantum physics, then you start to get into more of the quarks and the smaller particles. You start to deal with all of these things. So it's interesting to see that the Srimad Bhagavatam even speaks on such a level, and that gave me great faith to trust actually what Srila Prabhupada is saying, that these scientists are rascals, they don't know anything actually, because the Srimad Bhagavatam knows so much more. And as Shaunaka Rishi is saying here, that we would like to hear about Vidura and his leaving home and going and meeting Maitreya. And Srila Prabhupada is writing how that the devotees of the Lord, although they appreciate and understand and can see the creation of the Lord, annihilation as a part of the Lord, ultimately they're interested in hearing about the Lord directly. Although the Srimad Bhagavatam also makes the point that if one does hear about the creation of the Lord, one gains a distaste for sense gratification. That comes in the 3:25-26. Bhaktya puman jata viragya aindriya drishta shrutan madrachana nuchintaya chitasya yato grahane yoga yukto yatishyate Rushibhir yogo margaihi. Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service, in the association of devotees, a person gains for distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. And in the word-for-word translation, the point is made, mat rachana, my activities of creation, and so on. So this point of actually hearing about the creation of the Lord, it's not that it doesn't give one any benefit, but that these devotees of the Lord who are on that platform of bhakti, of the devotional service of the Lord, they specifically want to hear about Krishna. They specifically want to hear about the pastimes of the Lord and the pastimes of the devotees of the Lord. So they simply put forward a request that you could please speak about Vidura. So Prabhupada, on that basis, he starts to, again, as usually, he starts to attack the scientists, that they are foolish. That here, Prabhupada says there are two classes of men, namely those those too addicted to the gross body and the material world, and others on the higher level who are interested in more transcendental knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam gives facility to everyone, both the materialist and to the transcendentalist. By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of the Lord's glorious activities, both in the material world and in the transcendental world, men can derive equal benefit. The materialists are more interested in physical laws and how they are acting, and they see wonders in those physical glamours. Sometimes, due to physical glamour, they forget the glories of the Lord. So, one specific point being made from Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada speaks on that principle throughout here, is this specific principle of Mata Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvam Idam Proktam Shrute Mani Ganaiva. So this principle is being laid out by Srila Prabhupada here, that, O conqueror of world, there is no truth superior to me, everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So the scientists, they are, as Prabhupada said, a glamour. Just like the pearls are very glamorous, they're very beautiful, they may shine, they may attract one very much. But if one forgets that the string is the basis of all those pearls, then one can understand that this person is foolish. A person thinks that all of those pearls are being held up by themselves without any basis to it, then simply that person is foolish. That person cannot be given the status of being a knowledgeable person. You cannot call him knowledgeable. You cannot call him a person who is learned. He's simply foolish if he thinks, okay, those pearls are naturally just there by themselves. They're not being upheld by anything, but they're just able to do it by themselves. That is simply called foolish. So Srila Prabhupada speaks on that principle here, that the scientists, they become kind of, what does he say here, glamorous. They become bewildered. Sometimes due to the physical glamour, they forget the glories of the Lord. they should know that definitely their physical activities and their wonders are all initiated by the Lord. Maya dakshina prakriti suyate satcharacharam hetunanina kaunteya jagad vivarivartate. That all the moving and non-moving things, they are coming from me. Aham sarvasya prabhu. I'm the master of all the creation. So one misses that point, then he misses everything. Just like in maths, you can learn such high philosophy or high understanding of mathematics, but if you miss simple basis of what is 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, such and such, then you've messed up the whole thing and everything that you did is absolutely useless. So although the scientists are going on, doing so many experiments, but because they have missed one point, and it's quite amazing how the Maya Shakti of the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead works, is that you forget the most basic point of life. Life comes from life. You miss that. It goes over your head. How can you miss that? Any intelligent man can think a little bit and go, well, every life is coming from life. How have we come from matter? You can't. How can you come to a logical conclusion? Prabhupada would often, in his morning walks and like that, criticize the scientists. How can you be a scientist? How can you say that God doesn't exist, as Prabhupada is saying here, in the where he criticized where he put forth the idea that you can he has no objection in throwing away the Bible. Prabhupada says here, so you are speaking that from chemical combination life is formed. Do it in the laboratory. You cannot do it. Why are you propagating false propaganda? What kind of scientist? Then you are also to be kicked out. If Bible is to be kicked out, you are also to be kicked out. Why are you claiming your position? You prove, first of all, you combine chemicals and produce a life. And you are making false propaganda. So you are to be kicked out. They say, we shall do it in the future. And what is the future? Then why are you at present making false propaganda? Wait for the future. Post-dated check. In future I shall pay. Who will accept this check? Any nonsense will accept. So Prabhupada, but this world, Brahmananda Prabhu puts forward, but this world is so imperfect. The world is not imperfect. You are imperfect, rascal. You are a rascal. You are imperfect. The world is not imperfect. So, they have cyclones, they come and, yes, must come, because you are to be killed. You are a rascal, you are to be killed, therefore God has created cyclone. You protect yourself if you are a scientist, if you have got power. It's because they are anxious for some, because God has created cyclone, therefore He is perfect, because you are to be killed, blown away with all your paraphernalia, with all your scientist laboratory and instrument. Go to hell, that is perfection. They are eager to find a solution there. Therefore they are forced to speculate because they have no other way. And Prabhupada says, no other way. They are simply on the chariot of the mind. So, manoratena dhavato bayihi. By his chariot of the mind, he will be driven by the material consciousness, spiritual knowledge. Some break is there. Therefore we see big scientists, they are thinking that combination of matter can produce life. In spite of so much advanced learning, they do not know what is life. They cannot create life, still they will theorize. How foolish they are. And as soon as you catch his throat, produce life, no, we shall do it in the future, just see. Prabhupada is so expert. Prabhupada is so expert in capturing the scientists. He said, yeah, you can reject the Bible, go ahead, do it. And he's encouraged them, and then said, but you're also a rascal, you should also be rejected. And puts him on the spot. He agrees with them, and then he smashes them. So it's amazing, because Prabhupada put forth these arguments, and they cannot defeat actually. You can go on the street. Prabhupada actually told his disciples, don't argue on any other basis. In other bases, they may be expert. They've studied so much. But on this basis of life comes from life, it defeats every other principle that they have. Whatever principle it may be, it is the pinprick, as Prabhupada says in the introduction of his, or the preface, maybe it's a preface, he says that there's a all the material society, everything is seemingly perfect, there's a pinprick in society. Similarly, all the science, it's seemingly so perfect. They can produce these fans and this computer and that phone and so many vehicles now. And now you can have electric vehicles and you can have free energy and all of this. And it seems quite impressive. But if anybody is not bewildered by the glamour and he understands, oh, actually, although they are producing all of these things, as Prabhupada would say, that the scientist's brain is producing all of this, but who has produced that brain, they do not know. They cannot produce that brain that is coming up with all of these ideas. And where is that coming from? Sarvescha chaham hidrishani vishto matismate jnanam apohanam cha is coming from the super soul. But they're so foolish that they cannot give proper respect or proper regard to the super soul. They forgot. It's the same principle. Just like they're seeing this universe, the pearls, they're being held by these strings. Similarly, our intelligence is held and given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What is it? There's the strength. I'm the strength of the strength, but I'm the intellect of the intelligent. What is that verse that comes? No, that's the strength. Buddhi. Yeah, Buddhi buddhimatam asmi. I'm the strength of the strong. I'm the intelligence of the intelligent. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one who gives the scientist intelligence to be able to come up with all of this. That I give them faith. I give them faith by which they do not believe in me also. So they cannot recognize that. So then they cannot be considered as learned, as Prabhupada said, simply rascals, simply foolish, because they have forgotten and they have missed the main point. And they cannot see beyond the physical law. They cannot see, as Prabhupada says here, the rose in the garden gradually takes its shape and color to become beautiful and sweet, not by blind physical law, although it appears like that. So behind that law is the direction of the complete consciousness of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, things cannot take shape. And Prabhupada gives a nice example of, even when although you draw the rose, the artist may draw the rose, it has its imperfections, but there's a person behind that. The artist draws a picture of a rose very nicely with all the attention and artistic sense, and yet it does not become as perfect as a real rose. If that is a real fact, how can we say that real rose has taken shape without intelligence behind the beauty? This sort of conclusion is due to poor fund of knowledge. One must know from the above descriptions of creation and annihilation that the Supreme Consciousness, being omnipresent, can take care of everything with perfect attention. They cannot conceive of such a thing. So they have missed it. They have missed it. Although even when we create beauty within this world, scientists may create some beautiful looking thing, or we may create, like he's saying, some beautiful painting, or some beautiful movie, such and such, or some beautiful drama. It is all coming from a person. But then to think that this world, which is functioning so well, is not coming from a person, I also often give the example that this body itself is also like a small universe, a mini universe. There's so many things going on in it. You don't even know how many things are going on in it. So, Curtis, you want to get up? Yes, you can stand up. So, this body itself is like a little universe. So many things are going on. And some things of which we are conscious and some things which we're not. But it's not that things just move on their own. We're able to control that. That means there's a controller behind, whatever chemical reactions that are going on in my body. In order to move my hand, there's millions of little chemical reactions going on and to produce just the movements of my hand. Practically, it's inconceivable. If you try to do that in a lab, they can't produce it. They cannot reproduce just the simple movements of a hand. Now they can do that with a robot and all that. But to have an independently thinking living entity that grows and that can move and regrow, certain parts of if we cut our skin, it regrows. It's not that somebody has to come and put a whole new system in or whatever. And to reproduce that in a lab is practically inconceivable. So just to think about that, and then if applying that same principle, this whole universe is going on like this. For them to think about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is fully intelligent and who can move all of these things at once without having to think about it, it's also inconceivable for them. But one can conceive of it like this. There's millions of chemical reactions going on in order to just move my hand. But for me, there's not effort. It's not effort for me to just move my hand. So similarly for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for the whole material world to be going on like this, there's no effort. It's not Atlas, right? Atlas who holds it's not like that. It's like the same. It's just like we're controllers within this body where Prabhupada says we're like small. We're like small with God with a small G. We're small controllers. We're part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're not the supreme controller. So we have that tendency, we have the ability to do that. So similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has the ability to control everything without the need for intense concentration or anything like that, as Prabhupada says here. So the foolish scientists, they cannot conceive of such a thing. Therefore, they will always be bewildered in their studies and their experimentations. They'll never be able to come to a complete conclusion of what is actually going on. And actually, so many scientists come forward and say that if we simply just accepted God as a fact and accepted that within our realm of philosophy and our theories and such, all of the problems in science will be solved. It would solve it. And so many scientists believe in God actually also. It's not that every scientist is the atheist. They understand, material nature is going on and seemingly like this, but there's someone beyond it. There's an understanding. There's a deep understanding there. From certain scientists, I've seen so many on YouTube and all that they although they're professors and all of this, they're fully invested in some level of God consciousness. So, but the modern society, they have bewildered by acting as little gods and making the mass society who are unintelligent believe in these little gods instead of the Supreme God. It's the same thing. It's not that they don't believe in God. It's just that they believe the scientists are God or whatever. Even we're God, such and such. They think, we can make everything, we can do everything we want. But factually, you see their lives. They're not free. They cannot actually do anything that they like. They're trapped. So when one has a little intellectual basis of a book like Srimad Bhagavatam, then it's easier to come to that conclusion, and it's attractive even those who are attracted to the creation and destruction of the material universe. The Srimad Bhagavatam presents that with a pure understanding, with the motive and the direction of pushing them towards this attraction towards the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Just like we see here that Shaunaka Rishi, he wants to hear about Vidura and Maitreya's interaction. All of these descriptions, ultimately they start to point the reader towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, that there's the basis to all of this. It starts to make one think. It starts to make one utilize his intelligence. So that is the beauty of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that by hearing of just the creation, one actually starts to develop distaste for material life, and he starts to slowly develop attraction to hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing from the devotees of the Lord. It gives us faith, right? It requires Shraddhavan Jana He Bhakti Adhikar, that we get faith. Srimad Bhagavatam is speaking something that is actually on like factual basis, even what I see in this world. So what more is there? This is just a small part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, so there must be so much more. So let me go forward and see how much more they have. Let me inquire more. So that from that initial faith spring forwards, becoming attracted to the pastimes of the Lord. And Prabhupada goes on to describe that most people are not even conscious of that there's consciousness, that there's the supreme consciousness pervading everything, controlling everything, and more foolish than those who don't even recognize that is those who think they're the supreme consciousness. They're even more foolish. One thing is to be stupid and whatever, be ignorant, but then to the other end is that, I am all consciousness, I am supreme consciousness. I know everything. And Prabhupada says, you're such a fool, you don't even know what's going on in the next room, and you think you are the all-pervading, omniscient, omnipresent, Supreme Personality of Godhead. What a fool you are. And that is the nature of them. And the Srimad Bhagavatam describes that also. Maybe I pulled it up on my phone and then I didn't bring my phone up. So that describes how those who, they think that they okay, here we go. Yeni aravindaksha vimukta maninas tvayasta bhavad avishuddha buddhaya aruhya krichena param padam tatha padantya dho nadhrita yushmad angrayah. Some say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, there are those who are not devotees but who have accepted different processes for attaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Brahma and the other demigods said, "O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet." One of the over the retreat, one of the Matajis was saying how one of the candidates, she knows someone who is on the platform of fully being spiritual, and he's going to go back home, back to Godhead. And the Srimad Bhagavatam exactly says that. Well, they're fools. That their intelligence is bewildered, their intelligence is impure, they do not understand. Anyone who thinks that they can attain salvation without the process of devotional service, without following the Shruti Smriti Purana Adi, and following the rules and regulations of devotional service, it's simply foolish. They'll simply fall down from their imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. They're simply wasting time and wasting other people's time. So one has to have a proper understanding. Otherwise, just like the Mayavadis, they read through the Bhagavad Gita and they do all of this, but then they claim to be supreme consciousness. Like this guy yesterday, I don't know his name, but he was here, the Indian fellow, and he was talking to me, and apparently his parents are devotees, live in Vrindavan, initiated. But he was saying how he was hearing Bhagavad Gita from some podcast, by some weird translation, and he was just saying, it's like, how can Prabhupada say that his Bhagavad Gita is as it is? How can he say that? How can there's so many translations? Why do you just accept Prabhupada? Just say, what does the other translation say? It's like, oh, there's Brahman and there's Atman, and I say, where's Krishna? They say Krishna is not a person. Where does that say in the Bhagavad Gita? Therefore, they're fools. Why you He's like, but it's a interpretation. I was like, why as Prabhupada would say, why are you interpreting? Who are you to interpret God's words? Why are you interpreting? Why are you putting in your own conception? What is all of this nonsense? Why are you impersonalizing Krishna? Why are you saying it's the Brahman within? Or it's the Brahman within Krishna that you should surrender? What is this nonsense? Where do you get this from? From your own tiny brain, from your own impure intelligence. So they have no idea, because they do not have proper understanding, because they have not heard from the devotees of the Lord. They have not heard from those who have pure intelligence. So then your intelligence remains that like of a hog and a dog, stool-like. So these scientists, we can argue, and the Mayavadis, who claim to be supreme consciousness, it's very easy for us. Why? Because of Srila Prabhupada. He would just like he dismisses these scientists so easily. Similarly, he would dismiss all these Mayavadis so easily. Because we have the supreme knowledge by which to defeat anybody's philosophy. And we can see it generally, people put forward a philosophy, and it's fools, it's stupid. They put forward a philosophy, but it has no practical application. What is the use of your philosophy? You say like this, like that, like this. What is the use? Just like we were saying. Some people, God is in my heart. But God is in the heart of those who bomb people, and God is under the name of God, that God is in my heart. He's telling me to bomb people and kill them. I'll go get a good heavenly position. God is in the heart of the person who's feeding the poor person on the street, and he's telling me God is telling me in my heart that this is the right thing to do. It's simply foolish. It's just like they don't have a proper understanding of how to carry out devotional service. So one has to have a proper understanding, and that comes by getting proper intelligence from proper inquiry from the devotees of the Lord. So one should take shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam because it presents to us a complete science of who is God. Not just what is God, but who is God. And of course of so many other things, material nature, time, everything is so intricately presented in order for us to be able to gather together, use our intelligence to be able to defeat anybody's philosophy. Like I was saying that, main point I was making with that was it's not practical. You can say God in my heart, but I can say God is in my heart too. God in my heart tells me that God in your heart is wrong. So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have proper basis of Shastra. So therefore it is fallible. But when we take the infallible words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and apply in our lives, then it's practical. Then we can practically see how these things function, how things work. We can practically apply ourselves. So the scientists are not able to practically apply themselves to the philosophy that they adhere to. The Mayavadis are not able to practically apply themselves to the philosophy they come up with. But you see the devotees, they fully live what they speak. They fully live a life that they speak. They fully inculcate that and completely live exactly according to the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. There's no contradiction. Whereas every other philosophy you'll see contradiction. What they speak to, how they live. So the Srimad Bhagavatam presents us this beautiful science by which we can live in proper understanding, live in the devotion, live in the society of devotees with devotion service, and having a complete understanding, being able to defeat anybody that comes forward, whether it's an atheist, a scientist, a Mayavadi, or whoever it may be. Nowadays, so many different crazy philosophies, and sometimes you got to sit there and wonder, should I even try? Because it's so far out, it's so stupid. It's it doesn't make any sense, and you have to try to explain to someone some basic understanding of life. It's kind of hard, actually. It's really hard to explain to someone some basic thing that any person with a brain should understand. So, that is the duty of those who are preaching in the Krishna consciousness movement, to give this knowledge, to get them to use their intelligence, to purify the intelligence of others, purify our own intelligence from hearing from great devotees of the Lord, and smash their misconception of life and give them Krishna consciousness. Okay, I'll end the class there. You got to leave now, Abhimanyu?
By 9 o'clock.
Okay, so you're going to take prasadam? So, okay, I'll have Ali Krishna Prabhu, and he's going to take you. Okay, all right. Okay, so is there any questions or comments?
Well, I've always wondered about this. Because as the Krishna consciousness movement becomes more prominent, we are going to be challenged also. And the statements that are found in Shastra, which are statements about this physical world, will be also challenged.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Srila Prabhupada wanted disciples to do research into this and try to find out and establish, but I'm curious to know how would we explain some of these things, because, how would we deal with this? Because if Prabhupada is saying you can reject the Bible, then...
Sometimes there's those conversations where they ask Prabhupada those things, it's a fact, we just accept. Even though seemingly it's wrong, we still accept, because it's Veda. axiomatic truth.
Right. So,
But how do we like?
so I mean, we accept the Vedas as axiomatic, but how do you reason with this? Is it because once we accepted Krishna, and then that he being the source of the Vedas, therefore the Vedas are axiomatic? That's our reasoning. But isn't it, in one sense, the same reasoning that the Bible uses? I mean, people who the Bible is the Word of God, therefore the Word of God is true.
Yeah. There's some things where we're just going to have to say this is how it is, and we accept it. And there's a level of, for those who want to practice devotional service, it's like what I understood at one point in my life was that it's like it doesn't make, some of it, according to science and all of this, doesn't make sense. It's like, whatever, it doesn't, some things just don't like add up sometimes. And it's like that level of faith to have, still the main point is that there is God, as Prabhupada is making the point to that scientist. Okay, Bible says like this and all this, but why are you rejecting God? So it's, at least from what I see, like that's our basis, and then the details of what the Srimad Bhagavatam gives, that's up to the individuals to have enough faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead to accept that. We can't really convince. They may have so many numbers, like Prabhupada said, don't argue on other basis. They'll have numbers and facts to present, where our whole thing is on a statement from the Bhagavatam. And so like, when people argue with you on that basis, it's kind of like you look stupid if you try to argue and they've got a number in front of your face. It's look, right? Look, this is how it is, and you're like sitting there. And it's like whatever. So many people, it's like we accept it on the level of faith, and that's because we have realization. We have realization, and that requires you to come to that point of realization. And not everything is conceivable. We accept that as a fact, and things are inconceivable.
I mean, Christians also claim to have realizations.
Yeah.
And on that basis of the realization, they accept the Bible.
Yeah.
Of course, ultimately, as Prabhupada explains, I mean, in that quote that I sent you from Harishauri Prabhu's diary, he said the Bible is all speculation. Why? Because if you don't know who God is, how do you know what His laws are?
Yeah.
That was the exact quote. You don't know who God is. You cannot explain who God is. You have no knowledge of God. So how can your laws be true? So in that sense, we can claim perfect knowledge because we do have information of God. I mean, there is practically nothing that I have come across in any religion, any philosophy that is as complete and as comprehensive as what we have. About the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the nature of the Jiva's purpose of human life, and the process also. It's a process that works. It's like, so it's very scientific, as Srila Prabhupada would state. So on that basis, one can draw further and say, yes, now part of our philosophy, this is how I'm thinking in my head, part of our philosophy is also, we also admit that there are just things that are inconceivable to us in our current senses, and these probably are part of it.
Yeah.
We're trying to, but we might not understand. However, that should not be a cause for rejecting everything, because we have perfect knowledge of God. And I think that's where the bottom line argument kind of boils down to, is kind of in line with what you were also saying. But
you can just
generally sometimes devotees use an argument with, some of those things are not relevant for your spiritual life, so why don't you just deal with things that are relevant for your spiritual life? But I think that's walking on thin ice, because then it's like you start to think what's relevant in the Bhagavatam for me, and then the other classes you just fall asleep because you think it's like it's just some stuff that does not pertain to me at all. So we cannot think that any part of the Bhagavatam is not relevant to us. So I don't think that's. Have you heard that? I've heard that.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So I'm thinking that this might be a more reasonable way of going about things. Just like scientists themselves also say, we also don't know so many things.
Yeah.
Scientists don't know so many things. So it's like everybody admits that they have a limit to their knowledge.
Yeah.
We also admit limit to our knowledge, but actually because our knowledge is descending, we actually have access to more information than what we can actually personally experience and verify, that doesn't make it invalid.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like, why do you accept this life comes from life? Then immediately you can attack them on that. You accept this with blind faith. So you also have blind faith. Like, you're also accepting things because you understand that certain things you just won't be able to measure and be able to understand or be able to see. You can't see the Big Bang. How can you say it's true? So then, like, you're saying the Bhagavatam, where is it? Well, I can't see it. Then you show me Big Bang, and then I'll believe you. Then I'll reject my philosophy. You show me Big Bang. How will you show me? You can't see. It's inconceivable. For then it's okay. How will you show me whatever all the chemical reactions that go on in the universe to produce light and whatever that they may say? How will you show me all of these things? You can't. You can't show me the atom. Why do you believe in the atom? You can't show it to me. It's not there. Then I shouldn't believe it. Why should I believe you? Why do you believe it? You've never seen it. Yeah, so that's a really good point. It's just like, yeah, certain things we just cannot conceive of, and it's a part of any philosophy to some part of it to admit that to some point. Like, hey, there's a limitation on how much we can understand of certain things also.
Yeah, the thing I feel the main difference between the Bible and us, one of the big differences I feel, is that even amongst those things, okay, even the Bible does say, yeah, you can't understand God's works, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, but even the things that you explain about God, even the things that you explain about, religion and things like that, they just don't add up. They don't.
So many faults.
There's so many flaws in that. Whereas you will not find that in the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam. You will not find, at least, okay, let's talk about this. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, or you talk about, the nature of the soul, you talk about,
every single thing has like a very deep philosophical basis to it.
Right.
Yeah. Every single
right.
topic. Yeah.
Right. And so like Bhagavad Gita presents 5 subject matters. All those 5 subject matters, they are presented in perfect detail and in, actually very, very, very deep philosophy.
You cannot deny it.
And scientifically presented.
Yeah.
So yes, the Bhagavad Gita also says there are things that you cannot conceive of. That it is said in Bhagavad Gita that, Krishna says, I've gone through many birds, but both you and I have gone through many birds, but I remember them all, you don't. Okay, so there is knowledge that you cannot know. But whatever knowledge Krishna is presenting in Bhagavad Gita is perfect. Whereas what's being presented in these other... And the same thing with atheistic science also. What you're presenting is not perfect. It doesn't add up. It's nonsense. You say, okay, we're all a bunch of chemicals. It doesn't add up. What do you mean it's a bunch of chemicals? So I think that's where, if we understand that, and then even sometimes I'll devote how to believe this. It's like, I'm thinking this is...
Yeah, I think that's
kind of inferring that from what you read about Prabhupada also. The attack on this one point, Because otherwise disciples would ask Prabhupada, how did Ugrasen have more servants than the population of the entire world and all these kind of things and,
Yeah, inconceivable. Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you. Anything else? Janu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's really amazing how Prabhupada gave us these arguments that are basically flawless. And he would do this thing with his disciples where he would be like, take this position and I'll defeat you. Like Prabhupada was traveling with one devotee on a plane and he was like, okay, you be a Mayavadi and I'll be a Vaishnava. And then he defeated the Mayavadi. Then he switched it and then he was like, okay, you be the Vaishnava and I'll be the Mayavadi. And the devotee was like, okay, Prabhupada just gave me all the arguments, I got this. But then Prabhupada defeated him as a Mayavadi.
That's amazing.
So Prabhupada was so expert with these arguments, and there was one Prabhupada memory that I was hearing where Prabhupada was asking his disciples this question. He was like, I'll be a scientist and argue the point with me that life comes from matter. And they put forth so many things, and every time Prabhupada would be like, no, that's not it. No, that's not it. And then Prabhupada finally said, no, what you have to say is that everybody has a father. Do you have a father? Does his father have a father? Does his father have a father, and you can go all the way back to where everything that's created has a source. You can't deny that. So this is like an undeniable fact. And like you were saying, we don't like argue with them. Well, no, the earth is actually like 10 or like 100. But if we can get the scientists to accept that yes, there is God, then we can actually start to work with them and come to a conclusion. But that's why Prabhupada would really hammer on that. Like, no, you have a father, and his father has a father, and his father has a father. So therefore, life has to come from other life. It can't come from anything. Where are you seeing this?
Yeah, it's like the idea of singularity. So many flaws within the idea of singularity. That's their philosophy now, that everything came from a singularity. So, anything else? Okay, all right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.